this video, we will define case-based teaching and discover the benefits to student learning. Let's begin with the definition. Case-based teaching is a pedagogical approach that engages students in the process of making real-world decisions. I really like this definition because it explains the heart of how case studies are utilized in education. But I have a feeling this definition leaves you still wondering what exactly a case study is. Let me see if I can explain in a different way. Case studies involve a real-world story or situation, often centered around a person or several people, that encounter an open-ended problem or conflict that requires students to rationalize and solve. The real-world story may or may not have actually happened. It can be fictional as long as it is something that realistically could occur in real life. Now, this is a great formula, but it's not a requirement to follow this formula in creating case studies. As we look at some different types of case studies in the next module, there will be a few variances that you notice, but a typical case study will include most, if not all, of these components. The problems presented in a case study help students make those critical decisions. Isn't that what we're really here for? Yeah, we have a certain amount of content we have to teach every semester, but I don't think any of us set a goal at the beginning of the term to create a classroom of students with a bunch of facts in their heads. We strive to teach students how to take the information and use the knowledge so that they can survive in the real world. With repeated exposure to cases, students improve their skills in analyzing and dealing with ambiguous situations. If you think about it, we cannot come up with every scenario students will face in their lives or careers. In other words, it's not our job to teach them the answers to the problems. It's our job to teach them how to solve problems. The narratives in case-based teaching help them practice solving problems so that they can build confidence and know how to approach an unfamiliar problem down the road. One characteristic of a case study is that there is no one correct answer. And because they have no single solution, students learn to define, analyze, and solve in their own approach. Now, some areas of study may feel there is always a correct answer, and for some, like healthcare, it might be the difference of life or death whether or not students get the correct answer. But the answer is found in the process. I always tell my students that when I ask a question, I will follow up with why. Whether they come up with the right answer or something I had not thought of, I want to see the process of how they came up with that answer. I want the other students to benefit from not just an answer, but how to think through getting to the answer. And sometimes they come up with a different approach that led to a good answer that I didn't even consider, which is really cool. Case-based teaching is one of many types of active learning techniques. Active learning engages students even when content is difficult. Instead of passively listening to lectures, they apply the information in an active way. Sometimes you'll get pushback from students. This is often a drawback cited by faculty when they do case-based teaching, because some students, they just want to passively sit back and have the information relayed to them via lecture. However, we know through research that students learn the material more deeply and work at a higher level of learning when they are actively engaged. Now, we have known this for quite some time. This is the cone of learning from the 1940s. It depicts the idea that students retain more with hands-on learning, even more with cooperative learning, and the most with teaching one another. On the right side of the cone is showing the predicted effectiveness of case studies depending on the type of case study that is used. So a simple lecture-based case study is not going to have nearly as much student retention as small group type of case studies. Now, sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the different types of active learning, especially with problem-based and case-based teaching, because they have a lot of similarities. But in case-based teaching, the focus is on the narrative, that story that helps students really connect with the real world solution. And as we go through examples in the next module and creating our own towards the end of this class, I think that emphasis on the narrative will become much more clear.